This is actually being live streamed on Periscope, so it's a new app that allows you to do live stream video. So it's basically like the new age of kind of TV, where you don't need a TV station to live stream content. So this is kind of live stream. You can download Periscope and watch the live stream, or you can replay it. So that's just a cool app that we're doing here. But in any case, they invited me to talk about entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship, I think, is a very interesting concept. It's something that's definitely grown in the last few years. And we're starting to see a lot more entrepreneurs in the world. So, well, I don't think everyone in the world will be an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people there'll be a lot of growth in entrepreneurship. But I think what will become pervasive is the entrepreneurial mindset. And so what is this entrepreneurial mindset? So what the entrepreneurial mindset is a way of thinking. It's a way of questioning the way we see the world, questioning what is around us. And that challenging, the way we challenge what we consider the norm is what creates this entrepreneurial mindset. And I think this is going to become pervasive because the rate of change in the world has increased. And so businesses can no longer operate the way they used to operate in the 60s and 70s. Because you're just starting to see the product cycles have decreased, innovation has accelerated, and so businesses that no longer have this, that do not have this entrepreneurial mindset, do not live and breathe change and improvement and optimization, will quickly become obsolete. And so I'll walk you through a few examples of what I consider an entrepreneurial mindset to help you think about this. A fun example actually someone was talking about is like, when you have apples that have those stickers, those small stickers. And most people will just remove the sticker and not question or think about whether or not why there's a sticker there, right? But an entrepreneur would question, like, why is there a sticker there? An entrepreneur would walk into a building and think, is this the best way to design an elevator, right? An elevator, the purpose of an elevator is to take you from any floor of the building to any other floor of the building. If you look at the way it's designed, a lot of elevators take a lot of space, right? So an elevator is just a mechanism of transportation, and is that the optimal mechanism by which you can transport people between floors, given that space is such a big constraint in today's world? So entrepreneur will ask that question, right? A great example is when you enter a hospital or enter a clinic, right? You go into a clinic and you reserved an appointment before on the phone, they make you wait 3 weeks, you arrive to the clinic and you find out that they're behind for 2 hours behind, and then so you wait for 2 hours, you're kind of bored sitting down in the clinic, you get to the doctor, there's this whole experience that you have, and it's become part of the norm. People don't question it, people expect this problem when they enter a clinic. Whereas the founders of ZocDoc asked, why can't we use technology to change the way people engage and schedule appointments? And so what they did was they basically integrated with the doctors' physicians' calendars, integrated with the insurance firms, so I can know, like, okay, she's on Aetna Insurance, you're on Athena Health, she's on Blue Cross, whatever. So these are the doctors available to you, and then I can tell you when you can see their schedule. Oh, 2 p.m. they're free. And then if there's a delay, you'll get a text before you even arrive to the hospital, so you know there's a 2-hour delay. So this is a simple concept, and now they have 600 people, and they're growing very rapidly, and they've done a bunch of great things around reviews and around trust within the healthcare space. So all they did was they asked a simple question: how can this experience be made better, right? So a great question that Elon Musk asked. Elon Musk is a Penn alum, and who in the early 90s asked the question, what are the 5 things that are going to most impact humanity during my lifetime? So in the early 90s, he was like, in his early 20s, because he was graduating from college, and so he was saying, okay, in the next 50 years, what are the most important things impacting humanity? What would you guys answer that question? The most important things that will impact humanity from 1990 to around 2050. What would you have said? I don't know, most of you might have been pretty young at the time, but what would you guys have said, imagining your minds today in that time? Any ideas? In the early 90s, what was kind of growing? So very young. Internet? Okay, so he said the first thing he said was internet. Second thing he said was clean energy. Like solar energy, etc. Third thing he said was that we are very dependent on one planet as humans. We just have one planet we can live on, and there's no multi-planetary living. So the third thing he said is going to be very interesting during his lifetime is multi-planetary living, which is, by the way, a very big question to ask. Most people, it's another norm and assumption that we live on one planet and that's the only thing we can do. So he asked a much bigger question. He's like, wait, why can't we live on multiple planets? That was the third thing he said. The fourth thing he said was artificial intelligence. And the fifth thing he said that would most impact humanity during his lifetime would be the re-engineering of the genes. Meaning you can completely take your entire DNA and then re-engineer and play around with it in such a way where you could alter your state in your body and potentially have extended lifetimes, reduce diseases, etc., etc. Now he said number 4 and number 5, artificial intelligence and the re-engineering of the human genome. It's questionable their impact on humanity, if it's positive or negative, right? If you have artificial intelligence where computers can actually have consciousness, where computers can actually be as smart as humans, then there's this question of it becomes like a battle between machines and humans, and it's not clear that that's very positive for humanity. And the second thing is if you can completely re-engineer the DNA, the human kind of genome, that's also not clear whether or not that's positive for humanity, because we would all look the same, we would all live very long lives, and there would be there potentially could be reduced interest. It could have problems. The first three are very clearly positive, right? The internet has definitely democratized a lot of access to information. So renewable energy helps improve the environment. Multi-planetary living reduces humans' dependence on one planet. So very clear kind of positive things. So he dedicated his life to those three things. And in the last 25 years, he's built PayPal, which has powered the internet. So the payments on the internet. So he said in the early 90s, if the internet's going to be big, you got to do payments on the internet. And today, PayPal does over $150 billion of online transactions. They were sold for, in the early 2000s, to eBay for $1.6 billion. And after he sold them, he took his $180 million that he made, and he put $10 million to Solar City, $70 million to Tesla, and $100 million to SpaceX, and he basically had zero money left. And those three initiatives were on his, were targeting his other business. We're targeting those two other areas. So Tesla and Solar City are for renewable energy, and so solar energy, and the SpaceX is for multi-planetary. So how does this work? So when he came to do Tesla, he said we need electric cars, because cars burn a lot of, one of the have a big impact on the environment. There's a lot of cars in the world. So how can we build electric cars? So he's like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-engineer the battery. If I can make an amazing battery, then cars can last much longer, and then we can figure out the equivalent of the gas stations for electric cars, so electric stations, and we can figure out how to do that intelligently, and I'm going to do that. And for SpaceX, I'm going to learn everything I can about rockets and redesign rockets to get to Mars. And so those were his initiatives. Now, the thing is, you can have the entrepreneurial mindset. It's just the idea. Entrepreneurial mindset gives you the question. Why can't we live on multiple planets? We can all ask that question, right? But there's a big difference between someone who asks the question and someone actually builds a rocket that allows you to get to Mars, right? Those are two very, very different things. So a lot of people will say, oh, Google's such an easy idea, I just search. I thought of that. I would have been as big as Google. Actually, no, you wouldn't, because there were 5 companies before Google that did search. Google just did it better, right? And they executed very well. And they launched on the right time. And that's why they grew. It's not just because of the idea. So the idea, execution, idea versus execution, idea is a necessary but definitely not sufficient component of a successful venture. You need timing and execution, and that matters a lot. Say for Facebook. Facebook was the 3rd or even 4th social network. It's just that Friendster, MySpace, and Reid Hoffman's social network were not as big, their execution wasn't as well, and it wasn't as good, and their timing was just off. So there's a big difference between timing, between execution and idea. And so when you want to start a company, you have to think about that. How are you going to market? How are you going to take this idea and make it money? So what Elon did was he said, okay, I'm going to redesign this car, but I know the first version of this car, I'm not going to make the first version of the car and say this is mass market. Everyone in the world should buy this car. He didn't do that. He said, okay, my first car is going to be a premium, over $100,000 car, and it's only going to be accessible to a few people because it's expensive. And that allowed him, and he said, look, I don't want people, he didn't want everyone buying this car because it's still his first version, he's testing it out, and that's his kind of, he's testing it on very wealthy people who this $100,000 is not going to break them, right? And so he's trying it out with them. Then he's like, okay, his second generation car was the $50,000 Tesla. And he's like, now this is a bit more accessible, it's more optimized, there are more stations, electric stations, he's optimized the car, he's figured out a lot of the inefficiencies, and now the 3rd generation they're working on now is a $30,000 car, massive market electric car. Okay, so then he brought it, that's how he brought it to market, that's how he took his idea and brought into the world. Now, Google has a very interesting process here on bringing ideas to the world. So what they do is Google doesn't say, we're only going to do search, right? Google experiments with a ton of ideas. And the way their process is actually very, very intelligent. So the way they say this is that for an idea to be reviewed, right, for an idea to be considered, there's a low bar. Because most ideas at the beginning sound ridiculous. Airbnb is ridiculous. Like if you asked me in 2008 that there's going to be 1 million people who are going to list their homes to strangers who they don't know to come and live in their house, that's a ridiculous idea on the surface, right? But, so you have to have a very low bar because most ideas sound ridiculous at the beginning. No one thought Facebook when it first launched, and it was just a way for college students to check out like other college students, that it would become over $200 billion company, right? Most ideas sound ridiculous at the beginning, so you have to have a very low bar to experiment and test out what's going on with this. And then, once you experiment, have a high bar before you fully invest resources and implement an idea because of a bunch of behavioral things. Whenever you have people full-time, you have escalation of commitment, people become committed to ideas, so it becomes harder to close them, turn them down. So before you have a huge investment into something, have a high bar, but have a low bar for things to get into the playing field and experimentation. So that's how you think about, that's how Google thinks about their Google X and Google Y programs, where they have these very long-term visions for what's going on. A great example is the driverless car. So the driverless car is amazing, right? It's like this car is going to be able to read what's going on around the world, and it's going to make decisions as to how to drive. And they even go as far to say that in 20 years, human cars are going to be illegal. You won't even be allowed to have a human car. And the next generation of people will laugh at us because they're like, what is this wheel in a car? Like, what's this wheel supposed to do? Like, oh, people were actually sitting behind that wheel and they had to drive. Like, oh my God, you had to like use the steering wheel. And those are the questions we're going to be getting in 20 years because it actually doesn't make sense for humans to drive cars. Humans make a ton of errors. I was just walking over on campus and everyone was on their phone. Every single driver I saw was basically on their phone. I'm like, okay, clearly we need driverless cars because this is not going to work. Like, this is not safe. And so this is something that I think is very powerful, but it's mainly just this like big question: how can we change transportation? How can we improve the way we move around the world? So there's the idea, there's the execution, and the timing. And the big component of execution is the team, and it's the ability to persist through the thousands of roadblocks that will come your way. You will just continuously face challenges. Uber is like the best example of a company that somehow every 4 weeks, they face, every month, they face some like big problem, right? This driver rapes this woman. This driver goes and does something crazy. This country doesn't like Uber. This taxi company hates Uber, and there's a big war, and there's a blah, blah, blah. So they're somehow always in the news, and it's always negative. This executive said something when he was drunk about this reporter, and suddenly it's all over the news. And so the amount of, they've done a lot of things incorrectly. They could have obviously executed better on a few things, but their product is amazing, and so people still use it. So, but in any case, there's just so much adversity that you have to face, and the only way to resist and just persevere is to just persist and have that team that's just so resilient. So team is actually the fundamental component. A lot of companies think about product and say product is the most important thing, right? If I have a great product, they will come, or whatever, like, my product will work. But in reality, it is the team that builds the product. And so the team is the actual most important part. And in today's world, the product changes every couple of years. Your product is no longer relevant. The products today are not relevant in 2017. Everything will change. Google changes its algorithm, Facebook will change its algorithm, LinkedIn will change the way. All these products are evolving over time. And so the team is what allows the product to evolve. The team is the most important thing. Now, the reason why everyone talks about product is that investors, it's very hard for them to fully evaluate a team. So the product is a lens by which they can understand the way the team thinks. At the current time, by looking at your product, I can get a sense as to how your team works, how your team thinks, how your team questions things, how they design the product. And so that gives me a lens into the team, but it's not actually, the product is just what it is today. There's a funny example. Campbell Soup, 100 years ago, put soup into a can. Today, 100 years later, they're still putting soup in a can. right? They just put soup in a can. They have great branding, great marketing, and that sticker around the can is like the most important part, that brand, right? But they're putting soup in a can 100 years ago, putting soup in a can today, and it works. In technology, that does not work like that. In technology, you are in the business of innovation. There is no way you exist unless you are innovative. So, trust me, Microsoft is what? They just did their 40-year anniversary. They've done a ton of things, and they're a completely different company today than they were 40 years ago. Or whatever, 35, I forget how old they were. Probably 40 years, 75. They're probably 40 years old. So, they definitely have changed. And so, it's just a different way of thinking about business. And so that's, I think, one of the big things that you're going to have to think about is like, how do you build a great team when you're executing on these ideas? And and this is another thing that a lot of people kind of talk about. That when they think about team, they just think about recruiting. Recruiting is so important. Recruiting is definitely super important. Like, you need the best talent on board. But the more important and harder part is the retention. Because if you bring someone amazing on board, right, and after 6 months they're gone, they're actually only productive after 6 months. The first 6 months, they're trying to figure out what's going on in your company, how things operate, how you work. So you invested all this resources in hiring, training, paying them for the 6 months. And if you don't retain them, you just lost all that money, all that time, and you're probably behind on your schedule. So retention is a key component of team. That is a lot of the times, or I think, obviously it's going to be important, but I think people don't talk about it as much. So how do you retain people? How do you create a culture? I think that's a very, very important part to scaling companies. Teams will help you scale your company, help you enter new markets, help you hire more people. Their networks will help you hire more people. The first people will become leaders in your company, right? So this is all very important things. Okay, VenturePact. This is me. This is what I do. So I'll give you a quick, thank you. A quick kind of intro to what we do. So VenturePact is a company that we're working on. And the main question we asked when we started VenturePact was, how is the world and how are companies going to change in the next 10 to 15 years? And how do we help you power that change? And if you look at the way companies work today, they are, there's a huge variety of different industries, and each industry operates in very different ways. But we think that in the next 20, 30 years, all companies will become software companies. All companies will become technology companies. I don't care if you're in real estate or media, I don't care if you're in construction or if you're in publishing, you will become a technology company, you will become a software company. And the reason is that your customers, if they're consumers or if they're businesses, if they're employees or if they're just construction workers or whatever they may be, whoever you're targeting, they're spending their time on the phone and in front of technology. So if you're not addressing that, then you're going to become irrelevant. You're going to become the Kodaks of the world, the blockbusters that are busy optimizing your blockbuster store or your Kodak phone without realizing that the way the camera industry is going to evolve is going to change dramatically. The way the DVD industry with Netflix, all these, the way the movie industry is going to change dramatically. So I think that's kind of where this gap, I think, that people left address. And so our idea behind VenturePact is if we can help companies who are traditionally not software companies, right? I'm a real estate company, I don't know anything about software. If we can help them adapt to this new world, then that's very powerful. So how do we do that? So I think the key thing here that we found is that there are two main parts to getting a company to think about how they can better serve their customers with technology, right? You're trying to figure out how I can better serve my customer by leveraging technology. And so the two main parts is first to realize, they can come up with an idea. How can I change the way I currently work with my customer using tech? So a hotel could be like, oh, I can do a really cool product where on my wall I can have a smartwatch that when I walk up to the door, the door and the smartwatch communicate. And the door just opens on its own. So I don't need keys anymore. I don't need to go to the lobby. I can come up with this new idea where it's authenticated for the watch. And so all I need to know is your watch or your phone or whatever it may be. So you come up with the idea. So the first part is how do I come up with this idea? How do I realize what I can do with technology? Because you have to understand all the nuances of it. And the second thing is when I figure out what I want to do, is how do I actually implement it? Because I've never built technology before. I don't have a bunch of developers at my disposal. I have never built a technology company. I have never built a technology product. So how do I do that? So if you can answer those two questions, then you suddenly become able to execute on it. So how did we solve these problems? What we said was, if we build a network of the best development teams in all the major tech hubs and geographies around the world, if we build this network across all the if you have all the major technologies, all the major geographies, someone can just go on our site and just search for, I need an iOS mobile developer in Nashville, Tennessee, to build a new payments gateway, to build a new mobile application, to build a new Apple Watch application, whatever it may be. You say that, and then you suddenly get these like 3 options that are pre-vetted. So we vet for talent because, again, if you've never built technology before, you don't know how to vet or screen for the best developers. You don't even know how to build technology. So we want to help you do that. So we do that for you. And then we provide you with reviews and all this information about their past customers. And so you can get an idea of, is this the right fit for me? You know, I am a media company that builds, that writes content for sports industry targeting this demographic. And so who's the right developer? And by the way, what's the time looking like? It's 12:30. Okay. So this is like a very interesting problem. And so, but we spent our time traveling the world and optimizing this process of matching and finding and vetting the best applicants. So now you have all these people at the proposal. The next question is, how do we do the first part? How do we help guide companies into doing that? And that's about us doing our own research and learning and working with companies and helping them realize the power of technology, what you can do with your phone. Or what you can do with technology in general, right? So Uber would not have worked before 2007. The reason why Uber would not have worked before 2007 is because the most fundamental important component of Uber is the GPS, right? You could not have a one-click request ride. You couldn't have that one-click experience if I didn't know where you were located. You have to put in your address, right? The second problem is no one carries around their laptops. So for you to connect to the internet, you need a laptop. So I would have to carry on my laptop, open up my laptop, say, I need a car, and this is where I am located, and then I would be able to get an Uber car, to get a car. That would not work, right? And so this innovation technology enabled a business that today is worth $40 billion, right? And by the way, this happened in a few years. Imagine the amount of skill they were able to generate from technology in such a short period of time. WhatsApp has over 700 million users. WhatsApp will be bigger than Facebook in a year and a half. They'll have close to 2 billion people. By the way, they've only been around for like a few years, 2011, 2010. So the only reason they can do that is because technology has democratized access to information. It has provided people, it's basically become ubiquitous. And so we're only going to see more people come online or come on the internet. So if everyone is there, everyone is spending their time there, how can we help companies get there? So that's what we're doing at VenturePact. It's helping businesses better serve their customer with technology. We think this is a very, very powerful concept, and I think this is going to power the future of companies, which we think are technology companies or software companies. So I'm gonna close it off here, and I definitely want to open it up to questions. Just a quick note: if you want to keep in contact with me, LinkedIn is the best place. It's linkedin.com/n/Rayess. Twitter, my Twitter handle is @Rayess. You can email me, randy@venturepact.com. I'm very happy to answer questions or whatever I can be helpful with, if you have technology questions or just business questions in general. But yeah, thank you for your time. I'd love to answer the next 10, 15 minutes, just to answer questions on like what you guys are thinking. But thank you. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you started VenturePact?
Sure. So we first started VenturePact just around 3 years ago. I started with Rafkan Mittal, who was a classmate of mine in college, and we were close friends. And so the way he first started it was it was like a long, I think we went out for coffee on a Sunday, and during the meeting we went through how companies currently build technology, and we found that because we were both in technology and we had seen what were the most common problems in our companies, and we both saw that like the main problem was, even as a technology company, for us to execute on tech, there was this problem where the demand for talent is growing, the supply for talent is not growing as fast, and it's already less than the demand. So there's just this gap. And whenever companies started to address the gap, they outsourced. And whenever they tried to outsource, they failed. So we started to look into this. And we said, okay, to do research, let's build software for companies. So we started building software for companies. First, and we get services fees for like our time to build the technology. And as we did that, we started to see what the problems were whenever companies outsource technology. And what that is, it's a remote work engagement, right? You are not sitting down across the table from every client, right? You're sitting down in your remote location building technology for these companies. So what we basically, that was our research of how do these remote engagements work. And as we worked on more of these engagements, we started to learn about the communication gaps. We started to see what the main problems were from a technology standpoint and from a communication standpoint into how to improve remote engagements and how to improve remote software development. And so as we started doing that, we realized, okay, the key problem here is that outsourcing fails because either the technical talent is off or the process by which you communicate is off, okay? So how can we address those two problems? One is find the right technology, and two is educate companies onto how to communicate. If we can educate them how to communicate, then we can help alleviate those two problems. So that's kind of how we moved into our marketplace concept, where we have this network of developers that you can search and connect with, and those developers are not employed by us, but are partnered with us. And so that's kind of the quick version of how we started. There's obviously a lot more that happened, but that's the short version.
Have you done any projects in Lebanon yet?
Have we done any projects in
Lebanon? I know like they're creating funding for new startups.
Yeah, we have consulted companies. We have consulted companies in basically all around Lebanon. We have consulted companies and spoken companies. We haven't worked very closely with them. Most of the companies we work closely with are in the U.S. But we have communicated with them and talked to them. And you see a lot of the problems, specifically you talking about the Middle East, and a lot of the problems we've seen with the companies we've worked with have is a very simple, problem that seems simple in the U.S. and actually it's harder to do in other countries, is basically payments. And these obviously have different currencies in these areas, so how do they facilitate payments? And so they figured out a few solutions, and they're not perfect solutions. And this is another reason why we're starting to see more cryptocurrencies arising in these countries without stable currencies and without proper online payments. Cryptocurrency is just a powerful technology that allows you to store value in a currency, in a global currency. So it's one currency, it's digital, it runs on the internet, and it's just one of the most powerful technologies we've seen since the internet. So that's what people are doing. It's a very interesting space. Yeah.
Where do you purchase cryptocurrency?
So you can purchase cryptocurrency on a variety of sites. Coinbase is the biggest. You can purchase Bitcoin on Coinbase. There are new types of digital currencies like Litecoin and Dogecoin and etc. But the main concept is that if it's actually a little complicated, but there's this concept of a blockchain. And the blockchain concept is every time there is a transaction, it enters a ledger. And this ledger is kind of just like a list of things that happen. And if you wanted to make a payment to me, you don't need to know who I am, you just need to know my public key. So I give you my public key, you make a payment to me, and suddenly that money that was in your account, comes to my account, there's a line item on the ledger that says that. And the way that the currency is valued is Bitcoin. So each cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is currently valued because there's a constraint on the amount of Bitcoin in the world. And so the value is based on the amount you want, the demand for Bitcoin. Supply is a constraint. So that's how it's valued. And you can imagine how powerful this can be in the future, because Bitcoin can enable a world of payments that never existed before, right? It's like email to mail. So people thought email versus mail is that email would replace mail. But email did not just replace mail. Email allowed us to communicate in ways we would have never imagined, right? We use email, right? Like just coordinating this. I probably sent back and forth like 40 emails. We would not have sent 40 physical mails, right? So it has gone much beyond what mail was, and I think Bitcoin and digital currency will go much further beyond the way we currently do currency transactions. So the way we currently purchase In exchange, I sell you a chair, you give me money, is limited. I think with Bitcoin, you can do a lot more things. With Bitcoin, an example is like Bitcoin tips. So you read an article, you can give a Bitcoin tip, and you can do it up to 10 to the negative $27. So you can very, very, very small micro payments that you wouldn't have given a tip for, you can give a tip for. For like an awesome article, I'll give you like 10 to the negative 5, 10 to the negative $4. So it's very powerful. But you can mainly Coinbase. Coinbase.
Do you see that currency appreciating over time, and is there regulation on that?
It's a great question. The currency will appreciate Bitcoin. I mean, I think you're starting to see they're doing the growth of Bitcoin is much faster than all the other cryptocurrencies. So it's starting to, it has that network effect. We are not sure that Bitcoin will be the last digital currency. If it is the last digital currency, it will be big, right? There will be a digital currency in the future. It's pretty clear. It's not clear which one would win because they have to basically come up with their own economic policy of how this is going to be self-regulated. There's no Federal Reserve. There's no economic policy, so it's a bit more complicated than that. I think Bitcoin is going to be powerful. It is a very, very highly volatile market because of, I don't know if you guys heard, but there's a bunch of stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Empty box got hit down. A lot of illegal transactions are done on digital currency. There's a lot of issues there, but it's just growing so fast in these countries that have poor digital currency is just highly volatile. Their local currency is volatile and they have trouble with payments. They're just growing very rapidly. So I do see it growing. I would not put all my money in it, but in 2013, Bitcoin went 50x.
Right.
2014 didn't do as well.
Quick question, last one, I promise. Is there any way that an outside regulatory agency could come in and shut Bitcoin down?
They wouldn't be able to shut Bitcoin down. They could prevent it from being legal. They could prevent it from being legal in specific scenarios. They could do that, that's the main risk with Bitcoin and digital currency is regulatory regulation. Regulatory risk. Regulatory regulation. Yeah. So that's one of the main problems that you're going to see with it. But I'm bullish on Bitcoin. Long term, I'm bullish on digital currency. Even I'm bullish on the blockchain. In its core concept of blockchain, the digital currency is just one application of the blockchain. Mm-hmm. Right? You can think all of transactions can change from the blockchain, right? Contract law will change dramatically with blockchain. I don't even need contracts with everything. Anything that has this ledger concept could be as powerful as people are saying even the internet. But it's very powerful. It's a revolutionary innovation. So it will be part of the world. Yeah.
How did you get like this? Like where are you from? What's your background?
Oh.
We just so outgoing, creative, an entrepreneur, go-getter. I'm gonna do it. Let's rule the world. Make a lot of money. How did you get like this?
Sure.
How do we become you?
Okay. So I grew up traveling. How much time do I have left?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. I grew up traveling a lot. I lived, around the Middle East. I lived in California. I lived in Florida. I lived in Philadelphia, New York. So I traveled a lot, and that gave me some cultural perspective, and that helped me be very adaptive as a person, adapt to different environments. But what really got me into this was basically when I was in college, I worked at other startups that just had amazing people. So I made all my decisions, career decisions based on talent. So I would go to a company and I really didn't care what they do. I would just care about who the people are and who the founders are and who I'm working with. And I just worked with amazing people that helped inspire me. And those people helped me think the way I think about the world, question the way I think of question. And so that I think was the most important thing is that as I spent time with them, that helped me
Become more like them.
they helped me become more like them, yeah. And so as we worked on more companies, I started to ask these questions of how are these businesses operating? What are the challenges we're seeing? And one thing that happened is when I went into investing, investing is an amazing position because you get to see so many companies. So if you just invest in 10 companies, you probably see 500 companies in a year. And those 500 companies, you're just analyzing them from a high level. And so the high level perspective of what's going on in the company is very powerful because most of the employees of the company are just seeing the day-to-day grind. So they're thinking, there's an event that's going on, how do we market for this event and this event? And it's just in the operations. Whereas when you're an investor, you're thinking from a high level. It's how does this business operate from a high level? Who are their customers? How do they serve their customers? What is the competitive landscape? What are the challenges they're facing? And so that high level perspective helped us a lot. And then we just learned so much in the last 3 years. Like we really, like remote work, how to optimize that wasn't clear 3 years ago. Today it's much, much clearer. Technology has evolved to allow remote work to become a lot better. So even, I think before 2008, this would not work because there wouldn't have been the remote technology available, right? That would have powered, because there really was only Skype before 2008. You wouldn't have been able to communicate in the way that you can today. So there's just a lot of variables that allowed us to get here, but it's just like all those things and just being focused on learning every day. Every day we're students, we learn a lot, but we always have much more to learn. And we just find that the more we learn that which we do not know. So we're still fighting and learning.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One quick one? Okay.
Okay, so if there was like a key and lock manufacturing company that.
Key and lock manufacturing
Yeah,
company.
because you mentioned like an obsolete, a company
Obsolete,
that
yeah.
foresaw that like they might become obsolete.
Yeah.
So would that company go to you, to your group of entrepreneurs and say like, I realize that like this company is not going to be as great as it has been in the past, and then your group of thinkers like, just like brainstorm of like ways that you can like move that company forward and keep it new?
That's one example, yeah. That would be a product innovation. There could be a product innovation, a marketing innovation, that we would use technology for. So this would be a product innovation. How can we reinvent our product in the future? And it would be a lot of like either digital, Touch ID with your fingerprints, or iris recognition, or just validation with your phone or your watch that would allow the authentication. Like the key in a lock is just an authentication. Like this is me, I'm allowed in. But the key actually, if you just took my key, you now can get in, which is actually not good. You would have to steal my thumb to get in, which is a little more dramatic of an action. It's hard for me not to realize that you cut off my thumb.
Okay.
So that would be a bigger issue. So you can come up with that. That would be a product innovation. Yeah, marketing innovation would be, let's say the company is a camel soup, and they still want to put soup in a can, but they want to think about how can we create an experience for the customer that's different, right? So instead of just doing the traditional like TV and offline ads, how can we come up with a new type of game interface application that allows our customers to better engage with our brand and to build our brand recognition and brand awareness, things like that.
So there's a lot of different components.
Yeah, and so they come to us, they say that, we guide them, and then the software developers in our network will be the ones that implement. So we connect them with the right developer, and they will implement. Yeah. Awesome. I think we're probably going to be running out of time. Yeah, just like message me, email me questions. I'm pretty good at responding. If I don't respond, just follow up. It's never because I don't want to respond. It's probably, it might just be the time where it fell off my first page. So just follow up, but I will respond. And yeah, thanks again for listening.